Welcome to NM's Arena. In this video, we are going to discuss the equity shares and preference shares in detail. Let us see what is an equity share. These are actually the ordinary shares of a company that do not carry any preferential right in respect of the payment of dividend or the repayment of capital. And the dividend on the equity shares is paid after the payment of a fixed rate of interest to the debenture holders and the fixed rate of dividend to the preference shareholders. And the rate of dividend is not fixed. The dividend varies according to the profit earned by the company. If the company has earned no profit, then the equity shareholders will not get any dividend. And in the event of a winding up of the company, the equity shareholders are paid in the last. That means they will get balance, if any, after the payment of all other liabilities. However, the equity shareholders are the ultimate owners of the company and they are the risk bearers of the company. And these shares are of different types like blue chip shares. The well-reputed, matured and well-established companies that has got a good record of earnings and dividend payouts are normally called blue chip companies. And these companies are financially sound and investors have a good confidence on them. The shares issued by the blue chip companies are called blue chip shares. And the price of the shares of blue chip companies are normally high. And they also offer a moderate dividend which is normally stable and consistent. The next type is growth shares. These are the shares issued by the growing companies. And these companies have wide scope for development and they expand their business by reinvesting their earnings in some profitable channels. And their performance is more than average. So it has got a good standing in the market. The next one is income shares. Certain companies do not reinvest their earnings for further expansion. Their operations are in a steady position and these companies distribute the entire earnings as dividend. Such companies' shares are called income shares. So these shares generate high yield and the market prices of shares are more or less stable. Another type is cyclical shares. If the values of shares are fluctuating due to the cyclical fluctuations in the market, such shares are called as cyclical shares. During the boom period, the companies perform well, and in the depression period, these companies' performance show a declining trend. And the next type is defensive shares. The shares of companies which are engaged in food processing, beverage, drugs, etc. are considered as defensive shares. And the income on these shares is moderate throughout the periods. And the next type is speculative shares. These type of shares are the risky class of shares that require special technical expertise and deep knowledge of market movements to deal in them. And the speculators deal with this type of shares and make short-term gains. Such shares are not well known and popular earners of dividend. The involvement of these speculators on these shares help to increase the price of the shares in the market. Now the next type is the stalwarts. Certain big companies have the abilities to surpass the gross domestic product of the company or the GDP. They are not swift climbers. These companies are called giant companies and the shares issued by them are called stalwarts. And the next one is fast growers. It is the share of the small aggressive companies that grow at 20 to 25% in a year. The growth of these companies is normally similar to the growth rate of the country. And the next type of shares is the slow growers. These are the shares of large and aging companies. Their growth rate is slower than the gross domestic product of a company. And the last one is turnaround shares. These are the shares of the companies which have accumulated losses and shows the signs of recovery. So that is why they are called turnaround. Preference shares are those which carry a preferential right in respect of the payment of dividends and the repayment of capital in the event of the liquidation of the company. And the rate of a dividend is fixed. This dividend is payable before any dividend is paid to the equity shareholders. Dividend is payable out of distributable profits and it is not a charge to the profit like the interest paid to the debenture holders. And the preference shares are mainly the non-voting shares and they have no representation in the management of the company. It is a fixed income bearing security and the dividend is paid at a predetermined rate on the value or the face value of the shares. There are different types of preference shares. Let us see which are these types. First one is cumulative preference shares. In the case of these shares, the arrears of dividend, if any, are carried forward and paid out of profits of the subsequent years. If the profit is not enough to pay the dividend to the preference shareholders in a year, and their dividend will be paid in the next year if there is enough profit in the next year. So both the years profit will be paid in the next year. And the non-cumulative preference shares. In this case, the arrears of dividend are not accumulating. That means if the company has no profit in a year, the preference shareholders will not get any dividend on that. It will not be paid in the next year. The dividend not paid is not treated as cumulative and the arrears of the dividend are not paid in the coming years. Next is participating preference shares. They get a fixed rate of dividend and apart from this type of shareholders have the right to participate in the surplus profit left after paying a reasonable rate of return to the equity shareholders. That is, they get their fixed rate and after that the dividend is paid to the equity shareholders. And after that, again if the profit is remaining, they can participate in that surplus profit or they have the right to that surplus profit. Next is the non-participating preference shares. These shares receive a fixed rate of dividend and they have no right to participate in the excess profit left after paying dividend to the equity shareholders. They get their dividend and after paying to the dividend to the equity shareholders, even if there is any profit left, these shareholders do not have the right to get a portion of that surplus profit. They have to get satisfied with what they have received the first time. Next is redeemable preference shares. These shares are issued as repayable after a fixed period or at the option of the company. Now the companies are not allowed to issue redeemable preference shares normally. And next is convertible preference shares. Right to convert the preference shares to equity shareholders is given for these preference shareholders. After a particular time, they can convert their preference shares into equity shares. These are the different types of preference shares. Now that we have gone through the different types of shares issued by a company, this is the end of this video. Thank you for watching it. For more videos, subscribe the channel.